You are lying on a wooden wheel with your arms and legs tied between the spokes. A man raises an iron bar. The crowd goes quiet. He is not trying to kill you quickly. He is trying to break your body in a pattern. One limb at a time, so the wheel can still hold you afterward. That is the important part. Your shattered arms and legs may be woven through the spokes, and the wheel may be lifted onto a pole where everyone can admire the government's commitment to public education. The lesson is simple. Do not become the next demonstration. Human beings have always been creative, but unfortunately, not always in useful directions. Across empires, kingdoms, courts, prisons, and warships, punishment was often designed to do more than kill. It had to frighten witnesses, humiliate the victim, prove the ruler's power, and sometimes entertain a crowd that apparently had nothing better planned for the afternoon. Some punishments were common. Some were rare. Some are known mainly from hostile writers and later legends. But the worst shared one ugly idea. Pain was not a side effect. Pain was the message. The breaking wheel became one of Europe's most feared execution methods. The victim could be struck with a heavy club, hammer, or iron bar. In some cases, the blows were ordered carefully. A sentence might call for death from below, meaning the executioner began with the legs and worked upward. Death from above could mean an earlier blow to the chest or neck, which was considered more merciful. This was called mercy, proving that legal vocabulary has survived many terrible relationships. But at least the wheel usually stayed in one place. Keelhauling turned the entire ship into the punishment. A sailor was tied to ropes, thrown overboard, and dragged beneath the hull from one side of the vessel to the other. The danger was not only drowning. Wooden ships gathered barnacles, shells, and sharp marine growth underneath. A man pulled across that surface could be cut badly before he even reached the other side. If the rope moved too slowly, he drowned. If it moved quickly, he struck the hull and scraped across it. Perfect efficiency was difficult, but disaster was wonderfully reliable. Popular stories often connect keelhauling with pirates. In reality, it is better documented in certain European navies, especially the Dutch, and it was never the standard punishment on every ship. Still, imagine being surrounded by open water, hearing the crew prepare the ropes, and realizing the ship itself is about to chew on you. On land, rulers found larger tools. In parts of South and Southeast Asia, elephants were used for public executions. These animals were not simply released in a blind rage. Trained elephants could crush a victim quickly, or they could be directed to injure, drag, or frighten a prisoner while the ruler watched. That control was the point. The elephant became a living symbol of royal power. Huge, intelligent, disciplined, and standing directly above one very unfortunate person. Some rulers reportedly allowed last-second pardons, turning the execution into a performance of mercy. You might spend several minutes staring at a foot the size of a table, only to learn whether the king was feeling generous that morning. It was justice mixed with theater, except the audience did not have to buy tickets. Then there was Impalement. The basic idea was simple enough that many societies discovered it independently. A sharpened stake was used to pierce the body, and the victim was raised or left suspended. A skilled executioner could position the stake so death came slowly. That was not a mistake. Slow death created a warning that remained visible for hours, sometimes much longer. Vlad III of Wallachia became famous for using impalement against enemies and criminals. Later stories probably exaggerated the numbers and added dramatic details, because propaganda loves a memorable monster. But the practice itself was real, and large displays of impaled bodies were meant to attack the mind before any battle began. Imagine marching toward a city and seeing a field of human bodies on stakes. The message did not require translation. Ancient Rome preferred its warnings beside the road. Crucifixion was usually reserved for enslaved people, rebels, bandits, and others considered beneath the protection of a Roman citizen. Before being fixed to a cross or wooden frame, a victim could be beaten and forced to carry part of the structure. Death might come from shock, exposure, blood loss, or the slow failure of the body under its own weight. It could take hours, sometimes longer. The location mattered. Crosses were placed where people could see them. Rome was not hiding the violence. It was advertising. Walk into town, pay your taxes, respect the empire, and please ignore the dying men lining the road. Civilization had arrived. China developed a punishment later known in the West as death by 1,000 cuts. Though that phrase can be misleading. Lingchi was used for extremely serious crimes, especially offenses seen as attacks on the state or family order. The condemned person was cut in a controlled public execution, and the body could be dismembered as part of the sentence. In some periods, opium may have been given, and executioners sometimes killed the victim earlier than the full ritual description suggests. The horror was not only physical. Traditional beliefs placed great value on the body remaining whole after death. Lingchi attacked the person's body, reputation, family honor, and imagined place in the next world. One government punishment, several layers of terror, very economical. Europe had its own method for punishing people after they were already dead. Gibbeting. A criminal might be executed and then locked inside an iron cage shaped roughly like a human body. The cage was hung from a post near a road, harbor, or town boundary. Wind moved it. Birds visited it. The remains stayed there as they decayed, sometimes for years. You were dead, but apparently your sentence still had office hours. For the living, the real punishment was partly social. Your family could not bury you properly. Travelers saw your remains every day. Your body became a road sign that said, "The authorities were here." And now we reach one of the most famous punishments of the ancient world. Scaphism. According to a later Greek account, a victim was trapped between two boats or hollowed wooden shells, force-fed milk and honey, covered with more honey, and left in stagnant water. Insects gathered. The victim remained trapped in filth, heat, and exposure until death came slowly. It is an unforgettable story. That is exactly why we should be careful. The main description comes from Ctesias, a Greek writer who told many dramatic stories about the Persian court, and historians do not treat every detail as reliable. Scaphism may reflect a real punishment, an exaggerated account, or hostile storytelling about Persia. The evidence is limited. The same warning applies to the Brazen Bull, the hollow bronze device said to roast victims while turning their screams into the sound of an animal. Ancient writers repeated the tale, but the story is wrapped in legend, symbolism, and political theater. It may not have existed as described, and somehow, that uncertainty makes the real punishments worse. We do not need a mythical torture machine to prove that people could be cruel. We have court records, laws, eyewitness accounts, execution sites, and bodies. The wheel was real. Crucifixion was real. Impalement was real. Elephants were used. Sailors were dragged beneath ships. Governments displayed corpses in cages and called it order. The worst punishment was not simply the one that hurt the most. It was the one designed to turn a human being into a message. Your pain taught obedience. Your body decorated the road. Your death made the ruler look strong. And the crowd went home knowing the system worked, because it had happened to someone else.